Welcome, class, to another audio podcast, and this is a small summary on your reading based on the origins of anti Mexican sentiments in the United States, written by Raimundo or Raymond A. Paredes. And this chapter, which is one of my favorite, and I know some of you are going to complain because it's long, but then maybe you have to be a historian to get really into it. So if you reflect on what is happening today with all the protests across the US based on Black Lives Matter, these feelings are not new and they have a whole history that supports it. And that's what we're going to look into this chapter. The beginning of your chapter talks about how most of the knowledge that we have about the relation between Anglo Americans and Mexicanos took place early in the 19th century. And this is the beginning of Anglo Americans arriving into Texas. As you learn in Professor Jacobo's video lecture that deals with Mexican Colonization Act, the Mexican government invited Anglo Americans to colonize Texas. Anglos already came with this attitude of expansion, land grabbing, and a lot of it was based on this idea of manifest destiny. It was almost religious, where Anglo Americans were chosen by God to spread out good principles of democracy and to cover North America from the east to the west. It's really important to understand that the Tejanos who were in Texas at that time were the elitist. They were white criollos. These were the sons and daughters of the Spanish born in Mexico. Now, they were white, but that was a different type of white compared to the Anglo-Saxon whiteness. So by 1820s, when Anglo-Americans are arriving to Texas, they come with this preconceived ideas that the Spanish were dirty, that the Spanish were corrupt, and the ideas of the Catholic Church being corrupt became one of the main clashes of cultures. This anti-Catholic sentiment and Hispanophobia is what Raimundo Paredes is going to explore in this chapter. The English settlement of America started at a time when hatred of Catholicism in Spain had been building for over 50 years. History is known as Protestant Reformation. And this is the time where the church splits in two, and English were attacking the Spanish, and they were denouncing that the masses were blasphemous. They indicted the clergy for encouragement of superstition and ignorance, and they even went further to claim that the Pope was the Antichrist. Englishmen came to regard the Roman Catholic Church as a supranational power which was looking to overthrow their government. There were countless of fights between the English and the Spanish, and one of the most spectacular one is the Spanish Armada in 1588, who tried to invade England, but the Spanish got defeated. So every opportunity that England had to trash Spain, they took advantage of it. And this is the account of Bartolomé Las Casas, who was a friar, and he wrote a book titled The Spanish Colony, in which he trashes the Spanish. He talks about the cruelty of the Spanish conquistador and how many indigenous people they killed. So, indirectly, when Bartolomé Las Casas was writing about all these accounts in the New World, this created a so-called Black Legend. And this Black Legend became kind of like the main advertisement for the Englishmen to further hate the Spaniards for all the atrocities they were committing in the New World. Raymond Perez also talks about the color black. And when the English traveled to Africa on enslaving expeditions, they became aware of human differences and the most obvious of which was your skin color. The color black had already acquired a number of negative connotations in the English mind, and eventually the Elizabethans formulated a scale of human beauty ranging from the blonde perfection of the Northern Europeans to the ugly blackness of the African. The Spaniards were placed near the bottom of the scale. This is really important because at that time the English were fully aware of what made them pure. Purity was connected to the religion and also was connected to their skin color. For them, the Spaniards were impure because the Spaniards at that time they were already mixing with the Moors, and the Moors were the northern Arabs who invaded Spain in 711 and they remained or stayed in Spain for about 800 years. So these Puritans in the colonies, they were always receiving anti-Catholic and Hispanophobic literature from England. And one of the most popular works is by John Foxy, The Books of Martyrs, and it deals with the Catholic persecution, which describe vividly the numerous outrages of the Spanish Inquisition. The settlers themselves produced a conspicuous body of anti-Catholic and Hispanophobic literature. In one of the earliest colonial works of Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford, he believed that God protected Protestants, true believers, from the evil designs of the Spaniards. However, it was not only literature. For about 100 years, from the 1600s throughout the 1700s, we have in the New World the English battling against the Spaniards. Now, this hatred, both political and military, combined with literature, is something that stayed in the New World for centuries. Raymond Paredes also, in his chapter, he talks about the images of Mexico that Europeans had acquired from many Spaniards. And it was divided. On one hand, they talk about the Aztec as a very high advanced culture, but they also talk about how faulty their religion was, based on human sacrifices, that they were devil worshippers, and they have all these negative connotations to it. For example, one of the Spanish writers, Lopez de Gomara, who talks about the impressive city of Tenochtitlan, and he talks about his architecture and how it was equal to the finest buildings of Europe. But he also talks about how these buildings were created just for human sacrifices. So you have this dual talk, how great they were, but at the same time how dumb they were. But overall, Europeans came to regard the Mexicans as the most depraved of American aborigines. So for most Anglo-Americans, the greatest impact on their views is that the Spanish mixed with the indigenous population. And for them, these mixed breeds created an impulsive, unstable, and insane population that was not going to prosper. So by the time Anglo-Americans arrived to Texas, they already had all these racist stereotypes and ideas about the Mexicano. Many historians believe that the war with Mexico in 1846 was racially motivated. That's all for now, and I'm looking forward to another review of another good chapter that you are going to have for this semester.